Most people work their face off forever and end up with nothing at the end of the day. I want you to be financially savvy, to have a great net worth, to have cash flow that covers all your costs and allows you to have some financial freedom. But the big one is I also want you to protect your assets so your family doesn't get screwed if something goes wrong. If you're up for that, that's what today's show is all about. Toby Mathis, thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, welcome.
Dude, I am so excited. For my friend that just watched this, we've known each other, I want to say 7 or 8 years, but we really got connected more so in the last couple of years when I was like, Toby, I'm struggling. I help people make oodles and oodles and oodles of money. Mm-hmm. And no one taught me about money growing up as a kid. We've done some podcasts on this. Today, in 30 minutes or less, I want you to give us the best of what you got on being financially savvy, which really is like tax and legal, right? Which is how do we create a larger net worth? How do we get more cash flow? And then like sort of that philosophy process you have. But the last one we got to hit is I was telling you about a friend who she thought she would live forever and she passed and her family's now in chaos because all of the assets are sitting inside probate and it's a disaster. So I don't want that to happen to any of my clients. So it's like going forward. So which one should we start with?
Oh my gosh. Start with the beginning where everybody's starting, where they're working to make money. So they're trading their time for money.
Yes. So how do we become more financially savvy?
With a plan. You actually start thinking about money in different categories. So I always do kind of 4. So I always look at, say, assets that you create, you want to protect.
Yeah.
If you're making money, you want to keep more of it. So you want to put more in your pocket.
Yeah.
Number 3, you want to make sure you're operating in a business-like manner so that you can open yourself up to greater opportunities.
Yeah.
And the 4th one, which everybody forgets, is you want to create a legacy.
Yes.
And you got to do it deliberately because if you leave it to chance, like we're standing here in California,
not going to happen.
Somebody's going to take a big chunk of it and it's going to take years, and chances of your estate passing cleanly are slim and none.
Yes. So we probably should have backed up and said, Toby Mathis. By the way, I said, Toby Mathis, wasn't there a famous country western singer a million years ago? And he was like, no, that's what's-his-face Mathis.
Johnny Mathis.
Yeah, Johnny Mathis.
But and there was a Toby Mathis.
There was a Toby Mathis. I knew it. Anderson Business Advisors, been around for several decades. You have helped. I mean, I've referred you tens and tens of clients personally. Yes. So you've been in the business of tax and legal advice and really tax and legal to help someone have a greater net worth, to have someone create cash flow. Like you introduce in these vehicles, but you do it in an ethical way, the right way, and with all the right tax stuff that needs to be set up the right way. Mm-hmm. So how, if you were to wave a magic wand, are there like 5 books, 2 podcasts? If someone said, you know what, like Tom Ferry, I was raised in a family, divorced parents, no one talked about money. And if they did, it was because there isn't any. And I tell this story of later on as my dad became an entrepreneur and suddenly had a Rolls Royce and was wildly successful. At least that's what I assumed because perception is reality. He's very wealthy now. But back then, like I lived in this sort of binary world of like, there's never enough cookies in the cookie jar. And then this guy's got a Rolls Royce and 110% financing on his real estate. Like, but nobody explained why, the mechanics, the how. Where does someone go in your mind today if they just say, I want to go from here to here financially?
So I would start where a lot of people start, and that's actually Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I agree.
It's a great concept book, but it's going to make you not sleep for many, many days because Robert's really great at laying out, here's the problem, and then where's the solution?
Yes.
Right? So then I would marry that to self, benefiting. Yep. Infinity Investing is a really good book that a guy named Toby Mathis wrote.
I heard about it.
It tells you what to start putting your money into.
Yeah.
And then in between
Why have you not sent me a copy?
I'd send you.
I'm just kidding.
I probably sent you cases. It got a gold medal of the books nobody's read. That is one of the best. I'm just kidding. It's actually done
in honor of the Olympics. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So your book, I agree with, all of Kiyosaki's work, at least the early, like the first 3 or 4. What are your thoughts on, is Charlie Munger too advanced for people?
No, Charlie Munger's great. Okay. He tends to push away, diversification.
I know.
Even though Berkshire Hathaway is very diversified.
Extremely.
He would go like, I think it was Costco and a couple others, but he was very, if I don't understand it, don't invest in it. And I don't think most of us can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't understand most of the world, but I'm still going to try to invest in the United States.
How much time should an entrepreneur listening spend time reading, like, this one of my new favorite books, How to Make a Few $1 Billion. I was telling you about this one. I'm obsessed with Brad Jacobs. He's had 7, $1 billion exits. He's working on his 8th right now. I got introduced to it listening to the Founders Podcast. Shout out to David Senra. I love you. Thank you. How much time should an entrepreneur spend time thinking about money, the language of money, what the wealthiest people do? What do the poor people do? And I don't mean that in a bad way, just people that, don't have the insight, right? How much time should they be spending on this? Because remember, they're selling houses, doing loans and doing title and building businesses and building software and everything else.
I would carve off a certain amount of time every day or every week.
Yeah.
A minimum of an hour a week.
Yep.
And it's going to be the most valuable time you spend because we could work our butts off. And it's kind of like this. I always say, I'm the hardest worker. No, somebody else is the harder worker.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into who's the harder worker.
Yeah.
I want to be getting into how do I keep most of the benefit and where do I transfer it so that I get even continuous benefit. And like you're looking at a book about making billions of dollars, they didn't make $1 billion working really hard. They made $1 billion because they created something of value that somebody else wanted.
Bingo.
And they levered the hell out of their time and resources to make it into $1 billion.
The way Brad talks, he's like, it was fun. He's like, it's the vibe. So I agree. And yet I know the vast majority of people spend no time on it. They will spend hours watching Netflix, but they won't watch CNN Financial or Invest Like the Best is another great podcast that I'll jump into. It's usually around a startup and how they do it and why they did it and the companies they're investing in. So there really is no simple path. It's just an asserted effort. You have to just decide.
I think it's simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference. So I always think back to me. So when I started, I didn't have any money. Like a lot of folks, I put myself through school. Actually went to school on a athletic scholarship, believe it or not.
Yeah, congrats.
And I blew my knee up.
And the starting center for that.
I know, yes, that's exactly right. I'm feeling even shorter. I was soccer, of course, or football as they call it in Europe.
Yeah.
But I lost my scholarship, and all of a sudden I was thrust in this world of I have to work my butt off, and I worked my butt off, and I went to law school, and I worked my butt off, and then I hung my shingle out because I had a really good mentor who said, do it sooner than later, like work for yourself. And so I really drank that Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And then he said, Toby, if you're going to do anything, you need to know taxes. And he goes, you got to get a good accountant.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jerry, really? Because I don't have any money. And he was like, you got to start. Otherwise, they'll take it from you.
I agree 1,000%.
And so I saved up, Tom. I didn't have any money. So I was saving up for that 1 hour consultation with the CPA for $300. And I still remember it because I was really, really poor. Like I would say, how poor are you? It's like I would go to Kentucky Fried Chicken to lick other people's fingers poor. And I would sit there and I saved up for 3 weeks so I could go meet with this guy. I go into the this guy's going to give me all the secrets.
Yeah.
And he made me feel about that tall. Yeah. I walked away dejected and feeling like an idiot, and it lit a fire in me. Straight up. I realized, man, there's a monopoly on knowledge.
Yeah.
And I want to teach people.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, at least my path has been educate people on this, learn about it myself. Mm-hmm. So everything I teach, I'm an investor. We have over 200 properties that I own, have a successful business, 500 employees. We've exited with private equity. So you get the little the boatload of money. That's great and all, but it doesn't the drive is to educate and teach other people. Here's how you do it. And it is simple, but it isn't easy.
I agree.
It's like following a recipe.
Yeah.
Put the right ingredients in. If you start substituting things, it's going to screw it up. So
yeah. You and I have talked about this a bunch, and I'm just going to, I want to point out the obvious to my friend that's listening. I believe fundamentally the mistake that the vast majority of people make that don't end up with the net worth that they want, the cash flow that they want, that they usually end up with financial confusion, is it's not up and visual. It's not being tracked and measured. They have no idea. My wife and I have been married, would be 31 years in October, right? Married her 3 times, never been divorced, just keep, romance, right? When we first got together, the first thing we did, we had this little condo in Newport, and on our bathroom mirror, I'm literally, dry erase pen. Okay, baby, how much debt do you have? Right? Hey, we're married. Welcome to day 1 of being married to Tom Ferry. How much debt, right? And we listed out all the debt. And we sort of totaled up what that bar looked like. And then I'm like, okay, let's list, okay, here's my savings account. Here's your savings account. I own this condo. We own this condo. You own your house, right? So we're like, okay, so what's our equity position? Okay, what else? Mm-hmm. And then literally my wife, because she's just brilliant, she goes, you know what we should do? We should not fixate on saving first. Let's get completely out of debt. And I was like, I was always told kind of balance the two. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I'm 23, right? I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So literally we wipe out our debt, let's say like a year and a half. And again, I'm not talking about mortgage debt. I'm talking stupid credit cards, line of credit, this, that, all that kind of stuff.
Tom, the way my brain works is I think of it as debt and leverage.
Yeah.
And debt is on something that we're consuming. Correct. That's losing value.
Bingo.
And leverage is when you are letting an asset pay it off. That's 100%. Not coming out of your pocket.
100%. Yeah. So we do that. And then we're like, all right, now what? Mm-hmm. And so I was blessed. My next door neighbor is this guy, Dick Ehrenfeld, who he retired at like 50. He was a financial planner. And so he would, every day we would come home and he would be like, Tom, Kathy, come over, have a drink with us and just, hang out. He and his wife. And like, they were wise beyond their years. And so I have always found myself to be in front of people that have infinitely more than me: health, mm-hmm. relationships, money, insight, knowledge, wisdom. I get very humble and I ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. So Dick, I'm 23 and you've been married for 14 seconds and you and your lovely wife have been together for, 40 years and you retired at 50 and you're now 70. Mm-hmm. How'd you do that? Tell me more about that. And he's like, I've been an investor. I own real estate. I own equities. And a lot of the words, I knew all the words, but I didn't get it. And he kind of mapped out for me, similar to the way our philosophy is, kind of a third, mm-hmm. a third, right? And then he said, but listen to me. Until you have enough money to invest, don't. Now, I will tell you, the number he gave me is probably not the number you would recommend. He said, I know, because I was like, I just bought this place and, I want to buy something bigger. And he was like, look, until you have $500,000 cash in the bank. And he said, don't put it in cash, put it in bonds. Mm-hmm. I had to write down, what are bonds? But at that time, he's put it in bonds. You'll get a better return. You get some tax savings. That's a good move for you. And he goes, and then when you have that much money in the bank, you can't invest all 500,000 because then you're broke. He's mm-hmm. like, you can invest half of it. And I was like, oh, new goal, bathroom mirror, wife and I save this much money.
Okay.
Right. And now what's happening is we're trying to drive our revenue up, which every person listening can, mm-hmm. and stay below our means and remember what the target is. Because the target was, we had this house, but we wanted to live closer, right? Like we had a destination where the school, where one day we would raise our kids. Like it was very mapped out in our head. What should this person do? Well, tell the story that you told me about the person that's listening right now. That's like, I just had a big closing. I got a check for $30,000. I'm going to go invest.
Okay. So I use rules.
Yeah.
And I have very simple rules. I use 70-30.
Yeah.
I'm going to put 70% of my income is what I'm going to live off of. 30% I'm going to do three things with. I'm going to give away a portion. I know people are like,
no, I love that.
But everybody that I know that makes over $1 million a year is a voracious giver.
Yeah.
And they started being a voracious giver when they were making $50,000 a year. Right?
Yes.
For whatever reason, that's just how they work. And if you don't have the money, like I didn't have the money, then go donate some time. You're going to be around really cool people anyway.
Yeah.
10% of it I use to pay off debt, like immediately. So if I make $10,000, 1,000 of it's going straight. So if you make a commission check, what do you say, 70,000 or whatever it is, 100,000,
10,000, whatever the number is.
Yeah. Then just here it is, give away 10%.
Yeah.
And if you can't give away the time, 10% pay down your debt. And I'm not talking about make the credit card payment. I'm talking about pay down the principal.
Yeah.
Start eroding it, and then 10% I'm going to put into income producing stocks.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know what to invest in, then just SPY or VOO, just an ETF, a bucket of stocks.
Dividend producing stocks, right? Stuff that pays cash flow. All right. So I think we've hit that one. And again, they should read your book and they should read everything they can. You kind of have to get obsessed about it, right? Is the best way to, maybe not obsessed, curious. Yeah. Curious. And if you need some motivation, watch the movie tonight, The Christmas Carol, right? Now I'm asking you not so you become Ebenezer Scrooge, but Ebenezer Scrooge visited by those three ghosts, past, present, future. And what it really is, it's about if you don't make any changes financially, where do you end up in the future?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I always, when I want to get leverage on myself, I always go to it's 10 years from today and I maintain the current status quo of an area I'm dissatisfied in. And how bad does it get? And then I'll make it like really bad where I'm scared, crying, upset, pissed, angry. Then I say, but if I make this change 10 years from now,
This is where I'm at.
where do I end up? And I suddenly, it's rainbows and butterflies and, joy and happiness, right? And I need to get that leverage on myself at 53, almost 54 to get myself in action. So that'd be my advice. Let's go to the next one though. I want to go to protecting their assets. There is someone watching right now who is my age or younger or older, who she thinks nothing will ever happen. And how many times have we seen this? I mean, I have friends that have passed that I thought were the healthiest person on the planet, running every single day, heart attack gone. And then the real, beyond the tragedy of a passing of a friend, a husband, a wife, a father, right? But the financial disaster that is left in the wake of that, because everyone says the same thing. They put I'll get my finances in order, and they put it on someday Isle. That island out in the middle of the Pacific that no one ever actually goes to. So what do they need to do? Give me the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. So when they listen to this, they're going to call their CPA. They're going to call their tax person. They're going to call their attorney and say, okay, I got it. I need to set up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, let's make it simple. First off, you want to control everything and own nothing. You should not own things in your individual name, period. And the reason being is because you do things out there, you drive a car, you can never escape that liability. If you want to make something and put it beyond the reach of creditors or somebody trying to take it from you, you can't have it sitting in your individual name.
Yes.
Now, there's always little exceptions, like if you have an ERISA plan or if you have an unlimited homestead, like you live in Texas or Florida, you don't really have to worry about your home. But I would still say get it out of your name.
Yes.
Because we want a privacy shield. We don't want people to know where we live. We don't want people to know what we own.
How do I get it out of my name?
You're going to use a trust, generally speaking. So if it's real estate, all 50 states recognize, we call them land trusts, but you don't say that word because people don't understand it. It's a grantor trust. And we use a nominee as the trustee, or you use an LLC that does not have your name on it in a jurisdiction like Nevada or Wyoming, which is our favorite because it's cheap.
Me too.
And you get your name off of things.
Yes.
That's number one.
Yes.
And people are going to say, but I'm never going to get sued, or I'm never worried about it.
But Toby, so my business, my cars, my savings account, my real estate holdings, my crypto,
anything of value that you'd be worried about somebody taking away from you.
Yes.
Your car, I was a liquidator, right? It's like you can move it around. I'm not too worried about the car.
Yeah.
But everything else, your business and everything else, they could take it from you. You don't want them to take it from you.
Okay.
Then you want to keep it removed. And if you start developing assets, believe it or not, in this country, there are people that target rich folks. They call it having deep pockets. And they will conjure up the most crazy stuff. I've seen way too many. If you just for kicks and giggles, go look online, type in Ed McMahon mold case. He got $7.2 million for having mold in his house that killed his dog. Right? If you think insurance is covering that, I'm sorry, that's an exclusion.
Yeah.
You're gonna get hit. And I'm not no matter what,
right,
you're gonna have some liabilities as you go through life.
Right.
Don't make yourself an easy target.
And we hear stories of the single mom making money, selling houses, doing well, lets her kid use her car.
Yep.
Kid gets into an accident, something bad happens, mom loses everything.
We had that happen.
It happens all the time.
One of my partner's friends, they went to school. They went to the same school. They go down to visit. The college student hit somebody in a crosswalk, and they became a quadriplegic. Took everything from the parents, everything.
Yep.
If you do not plan ahead,
right,
you will just be a victim in those situations.
Right.
And by the way, I have really good case studies.
I know.
We had 2 siblings. Sibling 1 was wealthier than sibling 2.
Yep.
Sibling 2 was our client, where we took everything out of their name, couldn't see them in the public record. They were an invisible investor.
Yeah.
Number 1 went to big law firm. They set everything up here in California. Everything was in an LLC. Everything was, right with the state. And you could see them on everything. They could sit there and say, I'm the CEO, I'm the president, and all that fun stuff. Same property, they both get sued on a liability occurrence that far exceeded the insurance. So these guys were looking at multiple 7, close to 8 figures as far as liability. they dismissed brother 2 because they couldn't see, and they said, we're not going to waste our time on you. And they put their tasers right on brother 1. The only difference is 1, you could see everything they had, and they knew they had deep pockets. Brother 2, they didn't. And we just saw that play itself out again in a lawsuit, multiple defendants, and they dismissed our client because they said, we're not going to waste time trying to get a recovery against somebody who doesn't have assets.
So the simple answer is own nothing, put everything in your trust.
Put everything in a trust or another vehicle. So like if I have real estate.
What's another vehicle?
I might be using a land trust in conjunction with an LLC. Okay. If I'm flipping, I'm probably using a corporation. If I have an active business, I'm probably using an SRC Corp or an LLC taxed as one of those. Yeah.
And even then, that's in my trust.
Even then, you own nothing, right? It's all owned in the trust.
Do you have a trust? Yes or no in the comments. Do you have a trust? Yes or no in the comments. Be honest, right? Because I remember the first time I heard this advice, I was like, I don't have that.
No, I'll make it worse. Right? Like you're in California.
Yeah.
California.
I live in Texas.
Well,
I'm currently right now in California.
We're standing here where this statute. So if you have property here, if you have real estate here, you live here, 8% of your estate, gross value is where they start. The personal representative gets 4, the lawyer gets 4 of your gross value, not your net.
Yeah.
And if you have real estate, we're talking about a minimum of 6 months sitting there in the probate court. And if you want to see a fight, put grief, greed, lawyers, put it all together and watch what happens. And it's usually it's not the greatest. And all the lawyers out there, it's better to avoid the legal process. If you never go to court, it's okay.
Yeah.
Living trust avoids it, and it covers you during your lifetime. I can't tell you how important that is.
Promise me you will get your trust set up. Okay, let's go to the next one. You talked about this philosophy of investing, and we said it off camera, and I want you to talk about it now. Like your first X dollars, you should do this. Yeah. And once you get to Y, you should do this. And then you go to Z. And I think it's important because it kind of feeds into the larger net worth goal, maybe for the person that's just beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you something to target.
Exactly.
And so you're talking about 30, 30, 30, 10.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you where this came from so people understand why. So at my firm, we do about 10,000 tax returns a year with investors and the affluent and wealthy people.
Yeah.
We learn a few things. So I've been watching them now for 25 years.
Yeah.
And you start to notice patterns. And there was a CFP, he's since passed, but he showed me the Yale model of investing, what they use on their endowment. And they would use this. Here's how we structure things. I kind of stole bits of it. I dumbed it down, and I made it, kind of approachable for anybody.
Yeah.
And we call it our 30, 30, 30, 10. 10% of your investment dollars are in cash or cash equivalents. That's where your crypto, your gold, and all that stuff is sitting. 30% starts with dividend producing stocks. In other words, we don't invest in companies that aren't going to pay us. It's like I wouldn't be a landlord and not get rents. I'm not going to own a company and not get paid.
Right.
If you want to invest in speculation and hope that it goes up in value, it's never going to pay your bills. You might gamble and win. Maybe you did NVIDIA and you're like, yes. But Warren Buffett makes more than this, from the dividends produced on Coca-Cola than the 100%. CEO of Coca-Cola. Like those dividends are really important. That's where you start, and you go up to about $50,000. The next 50, you're going to put in real estate. And when I say real estate, I'm not talking about going out and buying a single family.
No.
You're going to buy something called a REIT. Real Estate Investment
100%.
Trust. It's a bucket of real estate investments, and it's going to pay you. It's required to pay out 90% in order to keep its REIT status. And you're going to do that with $50,000.
Yep.
And you could do any real estate equivalent. Like if you really wanted like a fractional interest.
They do them on multifamily. They do blended. Whatever you want to learn more about, you can do.
And they do well.
Yeah, they do.
Statistically, they've done very, very well.
Yes.
Then the other 50% is anything other than your decision. So I call it managed money.
Yeah.
If you're really wealthy, you're going to have a money manager. If you're not, copy somebody else's portfolio. I don't care if it's Nancy Pelosi. I don't care if it's.
I knew you were going to say this.
You could go Berkshire Hathaway.
Right.
You could go just a recommended portfolio. You're going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be your other 30%. And then you're just going to always modify. So when I use calculators, I'm looking and saying like, I don't care whether you have 10 million or 2 million or 200,000 or $2, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're allocating it and telling it where it's going to go. There's people that call it your soldiers, right? You're sending them out to battle and you want them to bring back prisoners, right?
Yeah.
We are not investing just to sit there and watch it and hope that it goes up.
Yeah.
You are investing things deliberately so that it's creating cash flow that you can live off of.
Yeah.
So that then you don't have to work if you don't want to.
So I want to pause on that for a second because I'm reminded of so I've invested in like 100 plus startups, right? I've had 8 triggers and I've had a bunch fail. And what I see for a lot of people is they make these emotional decisions, right? So I think about a former associate of mine who called me, and Toby calls me, he's all excited. He's like, I found out about this like startup company. It's a weed company. It's distribution. It's in Canada. I go, yeah, I this company? He goes, yeah. And I go, I got the pitch. I didn't do it. He's like, no, it's going to be amazing. You know, like he's like, he doesn't smoke weed, but he's like, it's going to be incredible because this thing's going to boom and it's going to go leak. And I'm like, how much you talking about putting into it? And he goes, 150 grand. And I was like, 150 grand. I said, for your first ever startup, your first ever. I go, dude, I started at like 10, 5, moved my way up to 25. And I'm like, and you're going 150. I go, how much money do you have in the bank? Please don't tell me 150. He goes, I got like 200 grand in the bank. And he's like, I'm telling you, this thing is going to be a rocket ship. 11 months later, gone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Right. He didn't listen. And I get it. I think that the thing that I want to point out to people is be mindful of your enthusiasm. Be mindful of your like, oh my God, like I just heard about this and it's going to be incredible. Like you need to do the opposite of what everybody else does, right? The opposite is like, I'm sitting with, I can't even tell you. I can't say it. It's billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, right? And a wonderful family. They are so boring in their process and have been for 140 years since like the great grandfather started this whole thing, right? Boring, simple, formulaic. Is that a word? Formulaic, right? Process. Like that's how they do it. It's never exciting. It's very thought out. And that's the thing I want to get across this person. Like I found a deal. I'm going to buy it and put all my cash into it. And then I'm going to fix and flip it. And then I'm going to have all this money. I don't know if that works like 1 out of a million times.
Yeah.
Simple, boring, have enough cash, follow this. I like put it in the dividend stocks, then do REITs. Oh. And then when you have enough and you can go buy a duplex or a triplex or an eightplex, go do it.
It gets worse, Tom, because when we do dividends, we literally are saying companies that have been paying out dividends for at least 25 years and increasing them every year.
Yes.
We like Dividend Kings where there's like 20 some companies that actually beat that. Yeah, it is really boring.
Go to ChatGPT and say, what are the highest performing multi-decade dividend producing stocks? That's what you should invest in, right?
It's boring, right?
It's boring, but nobody likes boring. But everybody thinks, be the hare, not the tortoise.
Yeah, well,
we all know the fable. We all know who won the race. On the cash flow things, we got to be mindful of times. We sort of promised you got to film a whole bunch of other stuff today. Me too. The journey of cash flow. Most people today, and I'm not saying the person listening, but just across the U.S., Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you're listening, most people today have to earn money to cover their costs.
Yep.
And then they make investments that don't produce cash flow. They buy crypto. And I'm not knocking. I'm crypto, right? Like, but they don't think buy stuff that pays me. How do we get them into that mindset? Because at the end of the day, too many people retire or want to retire and can't retire, or worse, just hand over debt to somebody. How do we get them there?
The way that
Where do
I
they
do
start?
The way I do it is I calculate what my expenses are. And then I say, in order to replace that, I need to invest in things that pay for that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
You start focusing on like, hey, I live off of $5,000 a month. Okay, then I need to have assets that produce $5,000. Yeah. And once you see that number, hey, you know what? I've got $500 coming in cash flow. I only need to make $4,500 now.
Right.
Now it's 4,000. Now it's 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. And the day that you hit, I call it infinity.
Yeah.
I have enough cash flow coming in off of assets that I invested. And that's how I define an asset. Assets feed you, liabilities bleed you. Assets put money in your pocket every month. Liabilities take money out. And so if you ever wondered whether I'm investing in something that's an asset, that's it. So if you do like negative cash flow real estate, sorry, that's a liability.
Yeah.
Your house is a liability. Your car is a liability, unless you're using Turo, like you're making money off it. But is it putting money in my pocket or is it taking it out? Once you start seeing that number come down and you realize, wait a second, I can choose whether or not I work. and you will. Like everybody I know that's wealthy, 80 plus, they're still hustling, right? Yeah. They like it.
Yeah.
Because once that pressure's off, hey, I'm not doing it because I have to anymore.
Right.
It's so liberating.
Mm-hmm. So it really goes back to the dividend producing stocks, the REITs, and then buying real estate or buying business or whatever it is, but it's got to create the cash flow.
So I do 5 types of infinity income, right? That's how I use them. It's rents, royalties, dividends, interest, and then I have one more called short-term capital gains.
Yeah.
On when you own the stock portfolio, you can rent it out. I call it being a stock market landlord.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Kevin Simpson, who runs a big fund called Devo, which is an ETF you could invest in, DIVO. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
They write covered calls. What do they make? They make, 12, 13% a year.
Yep.
Boring. Billions of dollars.
Yep.
I think they have $8 billion under management.
Yeah.
And what do? They're not overweight and no more than 10 or 5% in any particular stock or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just, once you get there and you don't have to work anymore, it's like, I can't express it enough. It allows you, we call it the second mountain.
Yeah.
Right. You're off the first mountain. I'm no longer worried about my existence. Now I'm worried about my legacy.
Yeah.
And you can start doing stuff for others. And what's going to be really weird is that's going to accelerate your wealth even more.
Yes.
Everybody I see that does it, once they get through that,
for sure,
it's bizarre. They take off.
Rents,
royalties, dividends, interest. Here's an easy one. Like go to Prosper, ground floor, whatever, if you really want to.
Yeah.
And then short-term capital gains on options on your portfolio.
I love it.
Simple.
Every time I'm with you, you give me something new. That was the new one for me, just to put that in front of me. Like, oh.
So what do you invest in? Does it create one of those 5?
Exactly.
And by the way, there's a tax reason.
Yeah.
Dividends are taxed. If qualified dividends, long-term capital gains. For a lot of you guys, 0% tax on it.
Right.
Interest is ordinary income, but no self-employment tax.
Yep.
Everything on this list, no self-employment tax.
Yeah.
And rents, of course, we have depreciation and you have cost segregations and bonus depreciation. So you don't have to pay tax on your rents.
Yeah.
And then the only one that's like a little kick in the shin is the short-term capital gains is tax as ordinary. Yeah. Interest is tax as ordinary. But if you want to offset those, then you invest in royalties like oil and gas and you can offset the tax on it. Like it's fun. Once you start looking at it, it's like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to pay tax on this. Yes. Yeah.
Toby, you are the best. I'm so happy that we're going to be doing a lot more stuff together. We got this calculator we're giving to all of our clients on net worth and cash flow. It's going to be super fun. I just want to thank you, man. You are always contributing. Every time I text, there's always something new, right? This is something new. And I see your joy as you're talking about it. Because when you start helping people on that level, like a lot of people make a lot of money and they just don't know what to do with it. Right. And they think I can always make it forever. And sometimes they can. And sometimes they're pro athletes and it's over and it's done. Right. And there's some real estate agents that are pro athletes, made a ton and fading winner. Right. So this was super valuable. If they want to follow you, where should they connect with you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
Go to YouTube. Just type in Toby Mathis.
Bingo.
I have a pretty good, I have a ton there. Over 880 videos at this point.
Yeah. I love it, man. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And thank you. What's the one action you're going to take? That's it. And then who are you going to send this to? Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's a peer group. Because if you all start talking about it together, you'll all get in action together. So let's get started.